All right, everybody. First 4-person pod we've done in a while in studio. Really exciting. Mallory, you heard the Before Sunrise pod.
Oh, yeah. I booted it up on my television.
Do you want to do all your notes now?
I thought it was a fantastic pod about a beautiful movie, and I have been meaning to reach out to Sean to discuss with him how much of his commentary about Jesse was clearly about himself.
What do you mean?
Oh.
I did not think that. You thought that?
A lot of like, boy, this is just a really cool, smart, interesting person who's tall and thin with brown hair, and only when you get to know him do you realize how deeply insecure he is and desperate for your love.
Well, I don't know what you mean at all. I just think it's really great writing, really a great performance. I admire the craft of acting that Ethan Hawke brings to that character.
So Before Sunrise, 1995, but it was really set in 1994. Yep. Before Sunset comes out in 2004. It's set 9 years later. I'll start here. The 6 great questions of life.
No.
How did we get here? What happens after you die? Who killed JFK? Why does Fennessey log Rewatchables movies on a letterbox and spoil what movie is coming just to impress a couple of dweebs? That's number 4.
Really tough start to the pod for you.
I believe it was Chris Ryan who spoiled Before Sunrise, not me.
Number 5.
He said we were doing it.
I'm not done with my 6 questions. Number 5. Did Stern suspend MJ? And then the 6th great question of life. Mm-hmm. What if you had a second chance with the one who got away?
Now, would you say that those are in order of importance?
Can we start with JFK?
We already did that part. But this movie taps into that theme. There's been other ones. This did it the best. And it's one of the many great reasons why this is an all-time classic. Yeah. Mal, go ahead.
Oh my God! Just from the jump, what do I think of this movie?
No, the second chance with the one who got away.
Well, it's something that people think about forever. That's one of the reasons that Before Sunset and the entire Before trilogy is, I think, so indelible and so important to so many people. It's like simultaneously an experience that you probably feel you've never really gotten to have, right? Will I ever feel that way about somebody ever? What would it be like to feel that specific spark? And then that's just like the most deeply human and relatable thing, second guessing your decisions. Did you do the right thing? Do you wish you could have done something differently?
Should
Are
Lamar
you spending your life with the right person?
Lofted that pass to Andrews a little bit higher?
It's always great to be with you and
you were
share
gonna wait
our
until after
passions
the pod
together.
to do that. You do remember that, right?
You were going to wait.
Liven stuff up.
Unbelievable.
Literally
I'm
said you're going
healing.
to wait.
The wound is still so raw.
See our second chances?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty profound movie in that way, where you are having this very unique experience with this film because of the time elapse between the first two, right? And you're once attached to Jesse and Celine as characters, attached to Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy as people, and then also attached to who you are both in 94 and in 2004, or 95 and 2004.
Yeah.
And so there's like this triple layer of things happening that all culminates with, I think, maybe one of the greatest acts of wish fulfillment in the history of movies at the end of this film.
Sean?
I think that when I watched this movie, it became clear to me that I'm 9 years behind the characters and that they're making the movie every 9 years. And so this movie felt a little bit more predictive about the future, which is also true for the film that comes after this, in ways that are like really impactful on your life. Because when you're a teenager, you don't really have to worry too much about what's coming in your early 20s. But when you're in your early 20s, your early 30s are kind of a scary time. And Celine literally has a nightmare about this feeling. And so just being able to capture that specific feeling would have been enough to make it a really indelible movie. But on top of that, it's so deeply romantic and so intoxicating and so convincing. I really feel like I'm watching something unfold just like I was when I was watching Sunrise, where I'm like, these are not characters. This is not a movie.
Yeah.
This is something that I got lucky enough to observe. And it is an all-time movie for me, this one especially. And it works just as well on me right now as it did the first time I saw it.
I saw it in 2004 summer at what's the place, the Lamley, whatever.
Lamley, yeah.
Lamley. in Crescent Heights and Sunset. We had lived in LA for, I think, 18 months. My wife didn't really like it in 03, and then eventually was starting to like it. And by summer 04, liked it. And I was at a completely different place in my life than the first time I saw it, where I was dating somebody, but I had no idea where my life was going. I was living in Boston. 9 years passed. Now we're out here thinking about maybe we had a dog, thinking about maybe having a kid. And it was just a great experience. Was so excited that this movie was coming out. So it was like, man, it would be cool if they made a sequel to that. And I was like, hey, you hear they're working on it. And then it was like, no, they're making it. And then it's like, oh, I hope they don't fuck it up.
Oh, yeah.
And then a couple of people I knew saw it and they were like, it's great. I'm like, really? It's great. It's like, and then you go and it's like, oh my God. Like I remember leaving the theater being like, I don't know what to do. Let's go get coffee.
Yeah.
It was one of those. And it still is 21 years later. Like it still fires me up, especially the last 50 minutes. I think it's one of the great movies of that decade.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's also just like the three of the movies, each in their unique way. You walk out and you're just like, I need to talk about this movie for a really long time. I need to talk about how, how my life is like that and how my life is different. And, you're usually watching these with a partner, and you're like, it can be a little bit tender at times and it can be a little bit tough, but it's
especially
like
the third one.
Yeah. Should we all bring our spouses to the Before Midnight pod? What do you think?
I don't know if there's going to be a third. I think people are going to be expecting the trilogy pod, and I don't think it's happening.
I'm there when you need me.
That we might be saving that for some sort of theme month, like
we're getting divorced.
Pull my intestines out of my body through my rectum month.
Yeah. I mean, I am at the age that those characters were at in that movie, and so I'm kind of eager to revisit it because I haven't seen it in a really long time.
Oh, man.
But it's the exact opposite feeling that this movie gives you. Also, this movie is like so much less ambitious structurally, even than the first one.
Right, they have like really no side characters at all.
No set pieces,
it's
no
basically
palm
one
reader,
conversation.
no
one
poem.
Conversation over
it's like a
just them talking. Yeah, and so you really feel like you're inside of their heads, and they're giving you their inner monologues to each other.
Right.
Which is, I mean, there are very, very few movies that are able to accomplish this. Like, people don't usually try it because it's not usually cinematic.
Well, the other thing, so they're also playing off the first movie.
Yeah.
Which was so ambitious and works. And then they're like, well, how do we top that? And they basically just run it through. It's almost like the Goodfellas nightclub, walking into the Copacabana scene, and they're just trying to do that as the movie.
Yeah.
But watching how nervous they are around each other, and how the barriers start coming down, and by the time they get into the limo, and now it's just like, fuck it. I'm just going to...
Incredible.
I have no more secrets. I'm just going to tell you what I think now. And by the time we get to the apartment... You just watch these. I've never had an experience like that with a movie.
Well, it's like the sensation that you were describing of the anxiety you brought to the encounter of seeing the film. Like there's a very meta quality to that. You watch Before Sunrise and it is for us as viewers what they are for each other. It's this like magical moment in time. And then you think about it and you long for it and you wonder if anything else can ever really live up to it or match it. And then of course you would be nervous in the first moments of like that return. I mean, structurally, the way that the entire movie is just basically when you remove the opening and end credits, it's a 75-minute conversation that takes place over a handful of locations. And it's all three of the movies are very talky, but this one is particularly talky. Yeah. And that feels so perfect because like they're all really true to life, but that aspect just feels like if you spent 9 years thinking about whether you would see this person again and then you did. I love when they start debating the state of the world. And it's like, guys, you don't have time for this. You need to figure out if you're supposed to be together. But of course, that's what you would do.
Yeah.
Both because you're sort of trying to like delay and evade the where the fuck were you that Jesse finally builds up the courage to say out loud.
Well, he says it like in a couple of different ways.
Yeah,
over the
they're
course
inching toward the thing they've been waiting to say to each other for 9 years. And that just feels very true to what the experience would be.
Can I just read something that Linklater said that's basically exactly what Mal was just talking about? He was talking to Filmmaker Magazine when this came out, and he said, to me, the tone is different. The visual style is even more minimal. And in the first one, there is a much greater time span, and they were actively seeking out Vienna. Mm-hmm. They had all that possibility and a lot of time to kill. That was Night, too, very romantic and full of mystery and possibility. This one was just the opposite. This one's daytime. They've both got earthly obligations. We're in a town that she lives in. We're in a town that he's basically working in. He's got real life appointments. He's got to leave for the airport in 80 minutes. So the tone is very real world. And because it's sort of a document of real time, I wanted it to be a, quote, eloquent documentary. And I thought that was such a beautiful summary of what he accomplished in that.
That is how it plays, but with incredible oneers moving through Paris, which is really hard to pull off, but also seems effortless when you're watching it.
There's 3 different themes going on, I think. And one is that what happens if you have a second chance with somebody. The second one is how do people change over the course of a decade from their 20s to their 30s, which I think they nail with this. And then the third one, which I think she does a really good job talking about, is like, she's talking about all these relationships she's had and how each one took something out of her, right? So when you're idealistic, when you're 23, and then 9 years later, and she'd been in some things, and these people that she was with took little things from her that she can't get back. And what do they do with them? And even that whole road she went down, I was like, this is never in a movie.
Yeah.
What happens? Like you have these little pieces of yourself that you give to people. I mean, everyone who's ever dated a bunch of people thinks about that.
Sure.
It's like these, they're not gifts, whatever. These things that somebody else is just storing, you're never going to get them back.
She's talking about them in this point in her life less as gifts than as like robberies.
Yeah. Right.
Right. She feels
like she's violated
bereft of something that she has given another person and then no longer has. Obviously, specifically with Jessie, like one of the really heart-wrenching moments of the movie is when she says, basically, I had this like life-altering night with you, and then you took everything with you and I didn't have it anymore, right? And the way that she speaks in general, I mean, obviously you guys, I thought, did a beautiful job in the first pod of talking about how they are this idea of like, are you a romantic or are you a cynic? Really, they're both. And part of what makes the trilogy this great treatise on love and like evolution inside of a relationship is they move across the movies, but they move inside of the movies as well. And so when she's talking about how she would prefer to be alone because like that's actually better than being lonely with somebody you've chosen to share your life with.
Which is what's happening to Jessie.
Yeah. And right. So of course he understands that keenly, but he's also like, whoa, hold on. You just said you can love and you want to be loved. She's like, right. And that's actually why I'm pissed, because you made me remember that I used to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like and the beauty and the devastation of that are inextricable from each other.
But is it dead inside or is it dormant? And that's the other thing. And obviously it's just dormant because it comes back to life. Can we talk about Julie Delpy though? Because we were 3 guys who all had a crush on her talking about her in the first pod. But we didn't have the female perspective on that character in the first movie. Now the second one.
Did you notice?
So let's hear it.
I don't know what you mean. I felt like I adequately represented the female perspective in my discussion of her.
No, let's hear the female perspective on Julie Delpy's
Did Khalil
character.
Shakir get mentioned more than Julie Delpy on the Before Sunrise pod?
No, we talked about her a lot, but
we did.
But your take on that?
I mean, she's an all-timer. She is an absolute all-timer. Like, just a queen and an icon. Everything that she does in all 3 of the films is perfect. I know I'm not really supposed to talk about the 3rd movie, but I think I'll find that really challenging.
We're trying to confine it to this. We have to save it for pull my intestines through my rectum month.
You can only talk about the 2 towers, not about Return of the King.
It'll be Human Centipede, Saw 5 before midnight.
I mean, she's the best. And like part of the reason that they are so well matched is because they are like both utterly distinct, but also share this unique blend of like humor and charm and doubt and yearning, like the yearning that they're both, it's just emanating off of them in waves and ripples. It's like almost unbearable. I was so glad that you two both picked the listening booth as the most rewatchable scene, because that is like genuinely maybe my favorite movie scene ever.
Wow.
Like period. And the way that they're looking at each other and looking away from each other and how you can feel this like crackling desire. When you port ahead 9 years to this movie and they're in the car together, and you have the evolution of that.
When she's
looking
about to
away
touch
and he
his
turns
hand.
to touch to try to touch her hair, but then can't. And then he's looking out the window talking, and she reaches for to cup the back of his head, but then can't. It's like they're both able to convey something that is like so specific to their characters, but feels like just a part of their harmony together. It's perfect. The reason that we have to do Before Midnight, though, is not only because, hot take, that's the best movie in the trilogy, but
oh my God.
Way to go, Luke Wilson. Hell yeah.
because I mean
they're all that category.
They're all perfect. They're all perfect. My favorite one,
Jesus.
genuinely, is the one I happen to be watching at that moment. But I think I admire that one the most. And we need to do the pause so that we can talk about the moment when they go into the little Byzantine church, and she is like, "Sorry, am I not supposed to talk about blowjobs in a church?" And he's like, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't." And then she does this. Got to do the movie just for that.
I'm so glad you're sitting on the couch.
The thing that seemed more
Great
clear
film.
to me as I watched the movies again is that it's very purposely like a seesaw experience for how they see the world. That in the first film, Celine is much more openly romantic and idealistic, and that he is relying on his cynicism as a shield, but also you can tell that he believes some things. You mentioned how he talks about his parents in the first film, and that is a defining mode for him. And then in this film, to your point about what's been taken from me by these men who are no longer with me, or that line that she has about, I'm the girl that guys date before they get married. And there's like a wounded quality to her in this movie. And then in the third film, she's extremely severe and blunt and hurt. And in the third film, you can feel him trying to hold on to the hope of the future. And in this movie, they feel like the seesaw is even. That they're both know that they need change, that there's still the possibility for something, that they probably need each other in a very specific way. And I don't know if that equilibrium is part of what makes it so exciting for me, but it's a perfect middle point for this story, and kind of relates to maybe why they didn't do a fourth one.
Well, the big picture is the first one is about the idealism of everything.
Yeah.
And this one is kind of like when you've had some experiences, good and bad.
Yeah.
Is it actually better because you appreciate a little bit more? Kind of like how Mal didn't win the Super Bowl for 10 years, and now she'll appreciate it more.
Yeah.
The next
some
time it
respect
happens.
on Joe Flacco's name.
So there's been some losses, some pieces taken from you. But it is interesting. Like what's better?
Terrible.
I would argue that it's still being in that first before sunrise phase of like the world is wide open. I don't really know. I haven't really been hurt yet. I still believe in all these things as a better place to be, but this is also a really interesting place too.
Yeah, I was thinking about the line in the first one in Sunrise where Jesse is talking about how he still feels like he's the 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And she feels like I feel like I have the soul of an old woman.
Yep.
And how much they change
Yeah.
in between the first and the second one, the way you guys are talking about, where she becomes obviously so much more cynical, and then something about what happened to him in Vienna makes him so much more of a dreamer and idealistic. But the thing that's so amazing about these movies is the way that they experience like this transference from those nights together and those days together. And so that they obviously change one another so much.
This is my second favorite movie sequel ever. I actually went through everything to make sure that was true.
Porky's 2.
Godfather 2 is
Den
still
of
my
Thieves,
favorite.
Pantera. Yeah, okay.
I can't put anything over Godfather 2.
Fair.
But it's on that short list. I had Terminator 2, Aliens, Maverick, Dark Knight, which I think counts as a sequel.
Yeah,
I'm talking about official sequels, not like the fourth movie in a thing. Like we were following up this movie with this one, which I think goes wrong most of the time. And it's either we didn't get, one person that we thought from the previous movie, we couldn't get them, or it's just like, this is a money grab. This is like a true sequel in every respect, which it's weird. Why is it so hard to pull off?
I think part of what we talked about with Sunrise that is so powerful is that the stars are the co-collaborators, the co-conspirators of the story.
Yeah.
And this movie, more than any, which I'm sure we'll get into, it just feels like they have suffused so much of the story with their personal lives. So this doesn't feel like a Lord of the Rings movie where you're like, oh, there's all this mythology to acknowledge and this world building, and how are we going to do it? Or, hey, we've got this precious IP that we need to make another movie for. It's just artists trying to find a new way to communicate about how they feel about the world. For whatever reason, Richard Linklater is the only filmmaker who thinks this way. Because this isn't even the first time that they are reunited since Sunrise. Because they had that vignette in Waking Life. So he sees all of his characters and his stories on this continuum in a way that very few filmmakers do.
Tarantino has a whiff of it, but he's never really fully
committed
to it.
People pointed out to me what I was trying to think of, which is who's the character who ports over in a film, and it's Ray Nicolette, who's in Out of Sight, and who's also in Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
But that's just a very uncommon thing, and it's very hard to pull that off. And it would be interesting to watch more filmmakers and actors try to pull this off of like more small scale movies.
This is closer to like
them.
Michael Apted's End Up series
Yes.
than it is The Godfather.
I mean, the Trip movies with Coogan and Bryden are kind of like this, but they were TV series in Europe.
Yeah.
Usually it goes the way of Another 48 Hours.
Yeah. We've all
where
packed
it's
some
like,
pounds
oh,
on.
man,
Yeah.
Eddie put on some weight.
Yeah. We got
Nick
you out of jail
Nolte's
again.
not a
Yeah.
smoking racist anymore. Where are we? Why did this happen? Can we talk about the Oscar piece of this?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I try not to do this with every movie we do, but I found the 2005 Oscars for the 2004 season confusing when it happened. Because this movie was critically adored. And I think I just don't really understand it. Not that we can make sense of the Oscars ever, but for Best Picture, it ended up being $1 Million Baby won. The Aviator, Finding Neverland, Ray, and Sideways were the other ones. Best Director, he didn't get that.
Criminal.
Best Actor and Best Actress, not nominated.
That actually doesn't make sense.
So Best Actor,
Right.
Jamie Foxx wins for Ray. Don Cheadle, Hotel Rwanda. Johnny Depp, Finding Neverland. Leo in The Aviator, and Clint Eastwood, $1 Million Baby. I'm positive Ethan Hawke was one of the best 5 performances. Best Actress, Hilary Swank. Annette Bening, Being Julia. Catalina Sandino Moreno, Maria Full Grace. Imelda Staunton, Vera Drake, and Kate Winslet in Eternal Sunshine. I feel like Julie could have snuck in there.
If there were 10 nominees like there are now, this obviously would have gotten in. It's also more along the lines of the kind of movie that would get in nowadays. This is in the halcyon days of these are all studio movies that are nominated for Best Picture. $1 Million Baby, The Aviator, Finding Neverland, Ray, Sideways, all from major studios. They all have very powerful campaigns behind them. And this was a much, much smaller movie by comparison.
I just don't know how many actors could have been in those parts. And especially what Julie Delpy has to do in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I think she has the harder part in this movie because she's all over the place and you have to pull it off without seeming like you're not. Which Julie Delpy, which Celine were you more attracted to? Before Sunrise Celine or before Sunset
I think it's
Celine? Because I think it says a lot about...
It's Sunset.
Says a lot about us because I was more attracted to Sunset Celine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that says a lot about me.
What does it say?
That it was just more interesting. She was crazier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smoking cigs.
It's like she lit that cigarette. I was like, this movie did get nominated for an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
It's adapted because it's a sequel, and all sequels need to go into the adapted category.
I forgot about that rule.
Yeah, I read about it when we were researching this. I guess I had known it, but
Very silly.
I think it would have been very tough to win in either of these categories because it's the Year of Eternal Sunshine, which is like a masterpiece screenplay.
Yeah.
And Sideways, which was a phenomenon, and people really love that. We talked about it on the show.
Spike in,
By the way, this was a kick-ass movie year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good stuff from this year, like even from the comedy side, like Anchorman was this year. There's a bunch of good bunch of horror movies. Like I was surprised going through it. Because in the moment we were like, movies suck now. What's wrong with movies? Now, like I would take half of 2004.
I would be hard pressed to think of a movie that came out this year that I like more than the one we're talking about today. This probably if I was doing that list back then
in 25 or 24, like
in 2004.
Yeah.
$2.7 million budget made $15 million. Our guy Raj, he let us down in the previous three-star Raj.
Tough.
He didn't understand these boring Gen X people.
Yeah.
3.5 stars for this one. He said it was a remarkable celebration of the fascination of good dialogue. But Before Sunset is better. That's what he said about Before Sunrise. Before Sunset is better because the characters are older and wiser. They have more to lose or win. And perhaps because Hawke and Delpy wrote the dialogue themselves. The film has the materials for a lifetime project. Like the 7-Up series.
Exactly.
This is a conversation that could be returned to every 10 years or so as Celine and Jesse grow older. And yet,
Raj was ready for Before Midnight. He gets it. Well, so far, they don't have to stick to the 9-year thing forever, right? That was nice, but...
If you're putting Before Midnight 1 as Sunset 2? Or is it...
my answer, honestly, is like a little complicated, which is genuinely whichever one I'm watching in real time is my favorite because they're all perfect. So, like, whichever one you're with, you're like, how? Of course, this is the best one.
Yeah.
Right?
I think people probably fire Sunset up the most, right?
I think Sunset's the best.
Yeah.
I do too.
the case for Sunrise, in addition to everything you guys talked about, is just it's the only one that exists in a vacuum. So that's like a special thing, right?
Where they didn't know like anything about what would happen.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Sunrise gets the degree of difficulty because they're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
It's a premise that probably shouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
We're not going to get producer Craig's feelings on the trilogy yet.
Did you watch the whole trilogy?
No.
I just want your feelings on this.
I won't be watching before midnight.
80 minutes. 80 minutes for the second one. Did you pass out? Were you delirious?
Yeah, it was shorter than like most TV finales. It was fantastic.
Oh, definitely.
Could you like believe it that it was 80 minutes?
You rarely see sub 90 these days. If you see an 8 in front of the runtime, it's shocking.
I know, it's astonishing.
It's so short. I almost had that for What's Age the Worst. Like I kind of wanted like 6 more minutes. Could we have gotten like 86?
As soon as they get in the back of the car, I'm like, oh my God, is this almost over?
Right.
Not ready to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's almost like the and movies never do this anymore, but they want you leaving
wanting more.
Wanting a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're racing against the clock just like they are, right?
Yeah, as soon as they get in the limo, it is kind of, they get off the Paris boat and it's like, oh my God, this movie's got like 18 minutes left.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
What is the exact perfect age to see this movie, CR?
I have after you're married.
So whatever age that is?
Yeah.
What do you think, Mal?
I think I agree. Like, part of the beauty of the trilogy to me is just that you can age with them and you bring a different perspective to them when you revisit them. But the case for this, for me, the case for this one is the best, is like building off the line from Sunrise, like the answer must be in the attempt. Like, this is about the attempt. Every movie, all three of them hinge on some sort of choice for them. But this is the one where they make the most active choice. Jesse wrote this book hoping Celine would find him. Celine went to the bookstore hoping that she would get to see him. Like, they really chose to try to rediscover each other.
CR went on Off the Pike hoping the girl from Newberry Comics
Exactly.
would see him on there.
I was like, I'd love to talk Celine, but I got to do press box.
Did I hear you on the 25th anniversary of Noma?
But like, you can only, I think, really understand that perspective if you're a little bit older and have some
I think
regrets.
you have to be at least early 30s and either married
you have to have
or
like
at
a
least
couple
settled
of
with who you're
long-term
supposed to be with.
relationships
Yeah.
under your belt.
You need some...
Fennessey, what do you think, though?
You need a basketball reference page with some seasons in it.
Yeah, gotta have a couple of nicknames.
It's I mean, you know, my personal history, obviously I'm married to the girl that I was dating in high school. I saw this movie with her in a movie theater. I vividly remembered it was right after we graduated from college. We'd both moved to New York together. We saw it at the Angelica. I had misremembered it when I was talking to her about it, but she remembered it cold. She remembered the entire experience. You know, there's that train that runs right next to the Angelica. So if you sit in there, it shakes the seats.
Oh, I like that.
And it was such a memorable movie-going experience. We both loved it. We went out. We did the thing you talked about. We went out and had coffee. We talked about it for hours. We'd already loved Sunrise together. But if you look at it in one way, it's a real cautionary tale movie if you see it in your 20s. And I think I internalized that probably. That sort of... Because what Jesse says in this movie, which is something that a lot of people think that are married, is chilling. I mean, there is a horror movie quality to a lot of that confession that happens in the final 15 minutes.
Running a nursery.
Yes, I'm running a nursery with someone I used to date.
It's a tough land.
And I mean, the writing is brilliant in this movie, but they both get to say things that people think and do not ever verbalize. And it kind of like, it's almost like
if somebody hugged me, I'd dissolve into molecules.
But like, the movie is almost like a challenge if you're in a relationship too, where it's like, make sure this is what you want. Because you could turn out like these people who are 32 and are at the edge of their own sanity because of the choices that they made.
This is so interesting. I feel like this is our version of the conversation in the bookshop about like, it's a test for you, whether you thought they showed up 6 months later. Like, are you the romantic, the cynic, or undecided? Because like, I definitely think that's true, but I also think you could view it the other way. It's like, it can be affirming that you don't run out of runway. Like, you can make your way back.
There's just
to
that
happiness.
pregnant moment where it's like, I'm your Jesse, right? Yeah. like there's not a Jesse out there, right? Like, and you're like still thinking about.
Yeah.
I actually disagree with my friend Sean. I think this is an optimistic movie.
Well, it's
I think it ultimately is like a lot of weird shit can happen and you could give up and think that the moment passed, but sometimes it doesn't and you still have a chance.
I think you're right ultimately, and the movie is ultimately on that side.
But I see what you're saying about like this really lays out the baggage that can happen with some bad choices.
It's child of
The
divorce.
answer is probably like,
how can I not be thinking about Henry when I'm watching this movie?
if
Yeah, well, that's
Linklater
a good
was
point.
here, he would probably say you're both right,
Yeah.
because there are multiple realities where Celine just gets the day wrong and doesn't go to the bookstore, and his life goes on,
Yes.
and that's the whole point
But
of these
the
movies.
flip side of that is if the grandmother doesn't die, she's in Vienna.
well, the flip side of that is that if the German couple aren't arguing on the train, they never meet in the first place. I mean,
Right.
it's just like the whole thing.
That's what's great about this movie.
Yeah,
though.
I
There's
know.
40 different points that
the
this could have
best.
gone bad.
Yeah.
It's true.
So
Most
good.
rewatchable scene, Jesse in the bookstore. Just gonna start there. I weirdly really like
Oh, yeah.
the press conference of this random book because
Fantastic.
it's so absurd. It would never happen in real life.
Yeah.
Please,
I have a lot of
please tell
thoughts.
me what the book of basketball version of this was for you. Please
It
tell
didn't exist. Like be in Paris, like just doing like that, get the hands going. Here's the thing about Kareem that a lot of people didn't realize. Like this would just never happen. But I like watching Ethan Hawke just be full Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
Man.
Just doing Ethan Hawke stuff, doing hey, it's like my grandfather said, to answer that, take the piss out of everything. It's just slightly overacting, but I'm still
Someone's
into
like
it.
MJ or LeBron, Bill. And
Right.
It's like grandma.
I like how into it that one reporter is too,
yeah.
where she's
Oh,
a
yeah.
little like
Yeah.
Simone,
Yeah.
like a little
Yeah.
sweet on Jesse.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Um,
how could you not be?
But then watching her, the way they're using the flashbacks, I just think that
God.
scene is so well directed.
So good.
Cutting back and forth with the new one, and then it's that part when they're memorizing each other's face from the first movie. They're flashing
Incredible.
back to that,
Yeah.
and then it cuts right to her now, and it's like, oh my god,
Chill.
So good.
It's also like
so
this-
good.
the same cinematic language of the end of the first one, which is the
Yes.
montage of the places they
Yes.
were.
Yeah,
And now it's like a montage of who they were. And it's just
Mhm.
like, shit.
it's
so,
really
so
great.
good.
And his reaction to seeing her, everything about it, it's just great.
Well, also, like, the whole time he's talking to the reporters, he's waving his hand, like, you see a wedding ring.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Is he married to her? Like, we do not
Oh, I
yet
didn't even think
know.
of that. That's a good point.
And so there's that second when you see her, and she could just be like the proud wife who's there watching her husband.
He reacts though.
But the second you see his face, and he's just like melting,
There's a 1.5 second pause where you're like, he's
you realize
excited and destroyed at the same time.
and it's like this melding of heartache and euphoria because you realize that they have not been together, but also that they're there together again.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Good bookstore too.
Shakespeare and Company,
Shakespeare and
incredible.
Company.
Love that place.
I basically just have the whole movie as rewatchable scenes,
Yeah.
but we have the awkward walk
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is
when
so,
he
so
pretends
good.
that he didn't go to Vienna, and then he's like, "No, actually, I went." She's like, "Oh my god, you went!" And then she gets mad at him.
Yeah.
That. Well, wait, why wouldn't you have gone? Oh no, you did go. And
Yeah.
just that whole little mini roller coaster.
I
is
also
good.
love him being like, the book is actually a composite of you and this other girl.
Gretchen. Gretchen.
That's
Great
great.
stuff.
I also like when she says, "Do you think I'm neurotic? Oh my god, you must think I'm so." And it's like, yeah, you're being neurotic right now. At the cafe is really good. Do I look any different? Skinnier?
Oh my god, I love that part.
You thought I was a little fat French girl?
Wait. But most
so
importantly, the
good.
cigarettes come out CR. I mean,
We'll talk about it in a minute.
Big moment for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
we get quotes like "Desire's the fuel of life." They're really cooking in the cafe.
So good.
Then we get to Celine pretends she doesn't remember having sex with him.
Yeah.
And lines like, "I remember that night better than I remember entire years." What'd you think of Jesse's 6 months later lottery winners are the same no matter what their plight is, whether they're paraplegics or rich, they revert back to where they were.
Felt like when he dialed
like a
up
bit?
sometime like,
Coming up later?
Yeah, it's in the zone of why? How are there so many souls?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, no, it just feels like another version of when he's like, well, life's supposed to be hard. We have to suffer. Or how would we learn? It's like you just know that this is what he's been telling himself
Yeah.
since,
Yeah.
since she didn't show up at the platform.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing we've become such perverts in the last 9 years.
Oh
It's
my
been
god, incredible.
the boat ride. I don't know how the boat ride doesn't win most rewatchable scene, but it's not going to. Is it possible to have a bad on a boat going slowly down Paris scene? I'm trying to think of any
I
movie
think
that
if you
could
were
fuck
doing
this up.
it right
Rocky
when they
IX
were
fuck
worried
this up?
about the river being full of feces before the Olympics, you'd probably be like, this is harshing our mellow. But any other moment, the set is just pretty much
good. Pretty
I
good.
just don't know a single movie that could fuck that up. It's like unfuckable, fuck upable.
It's also, for as much as this movie is so realistic
man.
and feels so like actually a second by second document. In my mind, when I close my eyes, if somebody's like, "What's the perfect day in Paris?" It's like the day they're having.
God, yeah, of course.
And even though I know it was like super hot while they were filming, it just looks like the platonic ideal of being.
You just got to throw in like a corner crepe or two.
Yeah.
And you're
Again,
set.
not quite enough eating in this movie.
Yeah.
It's just a
Well,
great way
in
to,
many respects, I
to
agree.
experience the city, which is just to wander, to not be a tourist, but to just be somebody wandering into cafes, wandering into gardens, wandering onto a boat. It's an amazing way to experience Paris.
How'd you feel about Jesse's Notre Dame story?
Prescient, you know.
Do you think that was a real story, or was that another dipping into the routine?
I think it might have been something he heard at a bar at closing time. He's like, that's a great one. If I ever bump into
He would be
Celine-
an unreal podcaster, though,
Totally.
Jesse. He's
Jesse?
got so many takes, so many like
Should we hire
apocryphal
him?
anecdotes.
Yes.
Can
Like,
I pod with him?
He should be
Definitely.
the. You guys would have a
Breakfast
good
legs
book
for
pod.
Jesse already.
Jawing with Jesse?
Yeah.
Featuring Sia.
Great. Put him on the Prestige TV pod.
he
He's
would
just
be
breaking
good.
down Severance.
Yeah.
Then we get near the end of the boat. You want to know why I wrote that book?
So good.
We also get the line, I guess when you're young, you just believe there will be many people with whom you'll connect with later in life. You realize it only happens a few times.
Very painful to hear.
I thought about this a lot, even set aside the romantic aspect of it, because there's a whole other way to think about the movie of just finding people that you make that connection with.
Yeah.
And when you get older, you really, or at least I do, really protect myself against that. You know, like I don't really like overinvest in long-term relationships now, because I think I also don't want to get hurt in the same way in addition to being lazy. And so you're like way less open.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
When you're young, you're like, it'd be great to get laid tonight. It'd be great to make a friend forever. It'd be great just to have fun. But as your life becomes smaller, these opportunities, like they're kind of at a pretty significant pivot point here.
Yeah.
Your early 30s is when that starts to go away. You know, when you're like, I've got my people.
That's when your capacity in your nightclub starts getting cut down. You go from like a 350 person capacity to like 70.
You wrote about this, I feel like.
Yeah, when you hit your 40s, it's like a 25 person.
It's a social, it's like
a
a invite-only social club.
It's a speakeasy. We also get, I feel like I'm running a small nursery with someone I used to date.
Man.
And if someone would touch me, I would dissolve into molecules. There's a lot of stuff going on. Plus the 11th and Broadway thing.
Yeah.
Revelation. Tough one.
That one fucks me. Like, that fucks me up.
Even on my way to my wedding.
Yeah. And she's like,
I thought I saw you.
Basically, as you might have seen me. I forgot, like, when she said she lived there from 90.
Is this like when you saw Dana Wheeler Nicholson going to a deli in New York?
Dana!
I thought it was you.
Edie Falco asked me for a light outside a boat in Brooklyn in 2003.
Then we get to the limo freak out when we find out what actually happened. That she was fine until she read his fucking book.
Magical scene.
I put all my romanticism into that one night, and then you took it with you.
Yeah.
It's really playing all the hits for Mal.
That scene's incredible.
Then he has the good joke. I'm happy to see you, even if you become an angry, manic, depressive activist. Little comedy in there.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
Really, some great takes on an unhappy marriage.
Yeah.
Where you really, for the full depths, like, oh man, this guy. And when he says the thing about it's all worth it because he doesn't want to give up 1 minute with the kid or whatever that line is. And it's like, yeah, there's a million people like that who are like, you know what, I'll suffer the rest of this because I don't want to miss anything with this child that I created.
It's so sad because then he goes right into like, but there's no joy or laughter in my home.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to get to 52 and finally have to like admit that this was all a pretense and I don't love my spouse.
Yeah.
Very tough to hear. Very painful.
Then she's like, wait, I'll get sadder than this after she almost touches his head.
But then he says that he's had sex 10 times in 4 years. So it's like he's doing great.
Yeah. Put that thing away.
Nice driving. Boy. That's exhausting.
Yeah, how do you not have 10 kids? The thing about this scene to me, which is my favorite scene in the movie by far, and I think is one of the most incredibly well-written scenes in
and
like
how
in movie
long did
history.
they go for?
It feels like 8 or 9 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
it's like at least 9.
The thing that really hit for me this time when I was watching it is we actually do see a lot of scenes like this now in popular culture because everything is so therapized. And people are all about finding ways to talk about your feelings, but it's done using the language of therapy. this is a scene where people are really honestly talking about how they feel, their most vulnerable feelings in the world. Like what they share together is very, very intimate. Yeah. But it has none of the like casing of that language.
This was traumatic.
Exactly. Yeah, all of those like
I was triggered when you weren't there.
Yeah.
All those buzzwords, all that like I'm signaling to you my pain. It's none of that. It's like super fucking real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about where these two actors were at in their real lives,
totally,
you can feel them putting their lives into what they're saying.
Well, we should mention that he's getting divorced from Uma Thurman. Yeah. What was going on with her?
I think that they were just raising young kids, and that they were both working people, and that they were falling out of love in a way.
But what was going on with Delpy?
She's been married a couple of times now. She has had many boyfriends over the years, and I think because she was such an ingenue in Europe and such a kind of like desired woman because she had such fame in the movie culture, that I think she always had a complicated relationship to the way that she was viewed versus how she viewed herself. And so like, if you look at her career now, like she's directed 8 movies. She's written a lot of those movies. Like she's more than what she was presented as basically when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
And was like kind of a lust object.
Yeah.
And so I think she is bringing all of those feelings into what she wrote in that sequence too. So it's very painful and very impactful, but just feels very true.
Yeah.
The good news is she's not a lust object anymore, and nobody was online last night looking for photos of her smoking to send to CR. I didn't do that at all. That's
and I
not
did
in
not
my Google history.
Respond with
and he did not respond with
ready-made
photo. That never happened. She's not a lust object.
Called from the Google image search, Julie Delpy.
That never happened. There's no evidence that any of those moments happened.
Was that on your air gap iPad that you use for all Delpy materials?
That's the one where all my off the pike research happens there.
She also says, I think I might have given up on the whole idea of romantic love. I might have put it to bed that day when you weren't there. Because she's like, how do I trump this guy bearing his soul to me? I'm going to just say I'm dead inside. And that's where we land as we head to the last 15 minutes of the movie. We get a walk. We get the song.
The cat.
Nina Simone. And we get Baby, You're Going to Miss This Plane.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it's either between the limo or the end of the movie for me. I would go with the ending just because I think it's one of the best last 15 minutes of movie ever. And the song is just, especially the first time you see this movie, the song is like just one of the breathtaking.
When she sings to him.
When she sings the waltz song. It's one of the great moments of this century in a movie. Like, and she's so good at performing it.
Yeah.
And
it's incredible.
Just the lyrics and everything. The whole movie leads up to that moment, and then it like crushes it. It's like a sports scene.
Yeah. And again, it's just something about it that feels so true. If you have never written a love song for somebody you then thought about and yearned for 9 years, you can't relate to that part of it. But she's so embarrassed. Right? She's so embarrassed.
But she's also so good at it.
But
that's
she's
the thing.
So, like, it's a very natural continuation of the car scene because there's just like unburdening.
Yeah.
I'm not just singing this. I'm finally singing this to the person it was about. I would pick the car ride as the most rewatchable scene and the best scene, but the single best moment in the movie, other than I guess on the bench when she's like, "What do you think of the word pussy?" It's like, I love it. Other than that, is his face when she says his name.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
He like widens his eyes. Yeah. She makes a lot of great facial gestures while she's singing, where she's like rolling her eyes at herself.
Yeah.
She's trying to remember, but then she remembers perfectly. Her like anxiety about saying the word Jesse that is communicated only on her face. I mean, it's like
beautiful.
It's mesmerizing. The last 20 minutes of the movie are just they hold you.
It's the limo scene. Like her reaching out to him and not touching him. I was like, this is like when Christian Laettner hit the shot to beat Kentucky and the crowd is going wild, but Thomas Hill is sobbing. That's me. I'm both in the crowd freaking out, but also like walking around crying, being like, how is this real? Yeah. Like to me, the way that because you think about that, that's almost like, do they do coverage? I think it's mostly an uninterrupted shot.
No, it's uninterrupted.
There's no cut. I don't think there's a cut.
So just
it's
even
like
for her to time it so that she goes for his head, I don't even know if that was like improv or what.
Because she, like about 10 seconds before she starts to do it, but he turns. So she's like,
I was like, that to me is harder than like the fucking liquid Terminator in
Also,
T2.
to act in a limo is just like bizarre.
It's tight.
Yeah.
They're moving around.
Yeah, you got Philippe up
Dude,
there.
Larry
Who knows
Zabisco
what's
driving
going on
up.
with
We
that
gotta
guy?
talk my guy Philippe.
I think I can't get out of my head since the moment I saw it. You go by and you go by and you go
shit.
by and you go by, and the way that he delivers that story about the dream is
That's
so.
that's the last second he sees her is her going by on the train.
It's a cop out, but the answer is everything from the boat on. But
Yeah.
then if you go everything from the limo on. But if this movie's on, it's like, oh, they're in the limo. I'm going to watch this.
And it's so achievable. It's 78 minutes of movie that you can just get through.
I would pick The Waltz as the single most for me. What's the most 2004 thing about this movie? What do you have?
Celine's freedom fries joke.
Great
good one.
pick.
Wow.
Really good
her
one.
globalism takes.
That's a good one.
That's a very topical one. Good
burgeoning
one.
globalism.
I was
takes.
going to say no Facebook and how easy, if it's 2 years later, they're hunting each other down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The fact,
Yeah.
and I have some questions about why they couldn't have hunted themselves down in 2004. We had enough technology at that point. We'd email, we'd Google.
Does he even know her last name?
No, but she knows his now because of the book.
Because of the book.
That's the thing.
Well, he also didn't he say
He must have known her last name. They must have exchanged full names. Because how would she have stumbled upon the book?
You know what her last name was? Smoke Show. No, I don't know.
Celine?
Celine.
Can someone translate
Smoke
that
show.
for us
Smoke
into
show?
French?
God.
What's age the best? What do you got, Mallory?
For what's age the best? I mean, everything, literally everything. Obviously, the two leads and their chemistry and their involvement in imbuing their own experiences into the story. I think for me, it's time. Like both the way that the movie is shot as a real time. We've got this 80-minute block until you're supposed to catch your flight, but also just in general, like Linklater's interest in time, his fascination with time. This trilogy, Boyhood is one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love that movie. He's now attempting to do this with Merrily We Roll Along.
Yeah.
Like he's just obsessed with time and the way that they talk about time. And I love like Jesse at the book event at the opening when he's quoting Thomas Wolfe and saying, you know, we're all the sum of the moments of our lives. Like each movie being a day, a part of a day, set 9 years apart. It could have been 10, but it's not. Like, why is it 9 instead of 10? It's just these little
got the funding.
touches.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I love that part of it. And then the way that the time travel is in every movie in some way.
Mm.
You know, like when Jesse's pitching his next book, talking about the pop song and porting across time with this like link in your life. And obviously the time traveler is a character who he invokes in the first film and, you know, won't spoil the return of the time traveler in the third movie, but plays a very crucial role, the idea of time travel in the third movie. So I just love the way they talk about time and the way that the movie engages with time and how it's made. I think my other big age the best is just the restraint. Like, they don't kiss in this movie. Forget fucking. The only time we see them kiss is in the flashback footage from Sunrise. And the hug, because of that, when she says, I want to try something, and hugs him goodbye, like, I just want to sob watching it.
But when she's doing her little Nina Simone dance, it's like one of the sexiest scenes in movie history,
God,
despite the
yeah.
fact that they're 10 feet away. Like,
Exactly. It's all about the longing.
yeah.
You have any?
a lot of the callbacks to Sunrise, like
that's it.
walking through the cemetery.
Yeah.
She says, I think when she's like, "What do I look like the way you remember me?" He's like, "I had a pretty clear picture of you," because he took the mental picture of her before they leave. Celine talking about having a 13-year-old's perspective. That was Jesse's bit in the first movie. And then another, what's age the best, was Celine almost calling Notre Dame burning down. Because she's like, Notre Dame will be gone one day. And almost was.
Very sad.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. It's a sad one, but it's a good one. I had how they're talking about serious early 30s stuff as small talk.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when they were in their 20s, they wouldn't have done that. They would have just been like, oh, Vienna. And you do like that idealistic
But
shit.
it's a little bit of a crutch because they're afraid to talk about what they really want to talk about. So it's like, it's work.
It's like, whoa,
the state of the world, these platitudes.
Jesse's like, you have such a great job.
Yeah. It seems like a little bit fake, a little bit forced.
That's your early 30s.
Yeah.
This is a really good one. I'm surprised one of you didn't mention it. The living in New York at the same time with somebody else and not realizing they were there.
Yeah.
That's
Yossi
like
Solek.
a big city thing.
This the other day.
T.
Yeah, Yossi,
like-
who we work with.
the
We
three
lived
of
in
us
New York at
lived
the
in
same
New York.
time.
We didn't know Mal.
We're going to the
right.
same
Right.
bars and the same
I
shows.
lived across
and-
the street, literally across a apartment building across the street from Ben Lindbergh before I knew him.
Yeah.
True.
Even being alone, it's better than sitting next to your lover and feeling lonely. Call back to Neil Macaulay. I'm not lonely, I'm alone.
Definitely. What was going through everybody's mind at that
They
time.
were channeling Neil.
Can I just shout out one thing that's aged the best? That's probably the hottest anyone's ever looked. Is when Delpy's on the boat on the Seine, the wind blows her blouse up for a
Yeah.
second.
You get a
The
little
little
side
peak of the-
side waist.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
that comes back
Thank
when
you
she's
for bringing that
dancing.
up.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
thank you.
split in the
Makes
back
me
of
want
her
to do
shirt.
Bill Simmons Celtics drafted James Young fist.
It's perfect because they're always talking about little body parts. Like when he mentions the dream, he's like, "I touched your ankle."
Yeah,
and your
she's
skin
got cute
was
ankles,
so
too.
soft. You
Yeah.
know, she's like, you've got this like this line right here. It's like a scar. The red in your beard. It's these little pieces of each other.
I would suffer all the torture to be there for all the minutes of his life was the divorce quote. That's just a good quote.
Well, I mean,
Middle finger
I wonder if
tricks.
that will have a bearing on the third film in the trilogy.
Middle finger tricks.
Yeah,
Always been a sucker
good.
for those.
Yeah,
it's good.
And I don't really like cats, but good performance by the cat.
I've
No,
got,
good
I've got
cameo.
some. I've got some
no,
thoughts.
you're
coming
not a
up.
cat guy, I thought it was just more of like you didn't mind him, but that was just you have.
I'm a dog
dogs.
guy.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to choose. I don't
Okay.
think you can be
You don't have
both.
to choose. There's enough room in your heart to love all animals.
I think
You both.
also the primacy of bookstores
Yeah.
and of the international book tour.
Yeah.
These are not as common, these things.
I'm going to say they weren't common in 2004.
Yeah. Got some questions.
Oh,
about
oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So this book not enough of a success.
I think this
to
would have had to have
justify?
been a monster book.
We can talk about that.
That's like literally my.
This book is
only
not about the
picking nit on
NBA,
the
though,
movie.
mind
No.
you. This is a story that can be
He
translated
says
across
it's a
time.
bestseller.
A minor bestseller.
Minor.
So
yeah.
that means like
Right.
New York Times extended list. It's like number 22. Just don't think he's getting a European book tour.
Yeah.
But what if
It's like the only picking it on the entire movie.
what if
Yeah.
he's big in France? Like we do have American artists,
But there's
who don't
only
translate.
there's more journalists there than there are fans.
And
Like,
he
that's
says
the thing.
Good
it's
point.
10 cities in 12 days.
What's the big
This is his
newspaper in
first, like-
Paris?
Le Monde.
The Le Monde editor's like, hey, who do we have going down to the bookstore for Jesse
Jesse
Wallace?
Wallace.
No,
in
no,
town?
that's not enough.
He's
We need
number
2 more
24
guys.
on the extended bestseller list.
I need
Can we
one
send our
person who
best two?
believes in cynicism. One
Well, there's
person
a fire
who's romantic.
downtown. Do we want someone to cover that? No, we need to be at the bookstore. Great Shot Gordo Award, most cinematic shot. What do you got, CR?
There is a moment on the boat ride on the Seine where he's got his face. He's facing the camera, but he's looking at her. She's looking out off the boat, and the sun is like illuminating her hair.
Mhm.
It's like a halo, and you're just I don't know how they did that, how they caught it, how that happened. It's
He said that
beautiful.
they only shot at the same time of day every day.
Magic
yeah,
hour,
in the
right?
afternoon.
Continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
keep
is
it
crazy
continuity.
then when you consider it was only a 15-day shoot.
Yeah.
Like they had to fucking nail
I-
everything.
you get the impression this was a very difficult movie to make, despite how modest it is.
I actually like the very, very ending for most cinematic shot. That she's dancing and turning, and it just
It
the way it
fades.
fades out is really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
really
fade
well
is great.
done.
Yeah.
I
Because
like
you don't
that.
know if the movie's done yet, and then it's like, no, not only we're done, we're
Yeah.
gonna fade out.
One scene that I love is when they're showing up to her apartment for the first time and they're walking in and the woman comes out of the doorway, and which is her real life mother, and the camera turns, and for one of the only times in the whole movie the camera is not on one of them,
Mhm.
and it's on the courtyard, and you see that there's this meal, this sort of barbecue that's happening, and her real life father is there cooking, and it is a 5-second snapshot of what it would be like to live here, and you
Yeah.
just understand everything immediately, and it's like incredible
You can see Tony Parker and
storytelling.
Boris Diaw in the
Yeah.
background.
But that's like he never takes us away from them except for that one moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're right.
It's a weird but a cool choice that they make.
Kid Cudi, Pursuit of Happiness, so where best needle drop's got to be the Nina Simone song because it's the only needle drop.
But
Wow.
it inspired by your speculation in the last pod about 94 songs or
Mhm.
95 songs that they could have picked. It is really funny to imagine Jesse putting Drop It Like It's Hot by Snoop on. You heard this? Neptune's produced this. These guys are great. They're doing amazing stuff with hip hop production now. Timbaland. You know?
Oh my god.
Then I
that
really
is
would have
true.
related to Jesse.
Yeah, but don't you think then Celine's like, cool, get in your fucking limo.
Right. Denetheu's Benihana Award, Scene Stealing Location. We don't always give this one out, but I really liked her apartment complex and just that
Unbelievable.
whole building. Everything was
Beautiful.
really neat.
It's great.
Well, he's like when they're driving in, he's like, "You live here?" He's like so blown away by how
Yeah.
beautiful it is.
We don't get to give this one out either that much. The Mallory Rubin Award. Did this movie need a better sex scene?
No, it's the rare, possibly only. Maybe I've said once before. No, I think no. It's perfect. The fact that you are experiencing the same,
Did
like,
the Sandlot need a better sex scene?
I don't know if that category made it into the Sandlot pod.
Yeah, I don't think I snuck it in.
Oh, man. Yeah, you have to be in the same place as viewers that they are. You're just, like, consumed by your need. And then you leave and you wonder.
All right, CR, flex category. What do you got for us?
The Sean Penn I Brought My Own Pack Award for excellence in on-screen smoking goes to Julie Delpy.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
At the Le Pure Cafe.
I feel like she didn't smoke enough.
Well, nobody smokes enough in these movies, but knowing that Julie Delpy, there's a not so long ago Guardian profile of her that opens with Julie Delpy is smoking. She is constantly smoking.
Yeah, I have it here. Julie Delpy smokes and smokes. She smokes so much she should consider wearing ashtrays as trinkets. It's the first two.
Your dream woman.
Honestly, pornography, yeah. No, she I love also that he gets so excited that she's smoking, has a drag, gets his own, lights it off of hers. True smoker behavior. Respect.
Wonderful.
I'm still upset that they didn't smoke in the first movie. That's fine. The Butch's Girlfriend Award, wink leak in the film. I mentioned this earlier. I just felt like they could have done a slightly better job of trying to find each other. If this was the true love of your life and you've never been the same since it didn't work out that day, I just feel like by 2004, you could maybe hunt the person down.
You get the impression that she didn't go the extra mile.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's pretty busy. She was in New Delhi. You know, it's not like all consuming.
Pretty
it's like
busy having
in New York
relationships
for
where she's
4
given
years.
pieces of herself.
She was in the United States of America for 4 years.
Yeah. But didn't know his last name at that point.
We had AOL at that time.
Yeah.
You know,
how many Jessies are in Texas from her perspective?
I just feel like she would have known his last name by the end of spending 20 hours together in Vienna.
What is his last name?
Wallace.
What's aged the worst? I really have nothing other than I wanted Delpy to take a couple more puffs from the cigarette. She lights it, she takes one, and then really doesn't smoke it anymore.
I'm not trying to be a dick, but can we just talk this out? Can we have the meeting? Jesse's second novel idea is not good.
The pop song one?
Yeah.
That idea was...
That
was like a bad podcast pitch.
I liked it.
And yet, what he says
Zag for me
fits very well into my flex category.
Okay.
Oh, we can do that right now.
So my flex category is a 3-way tie. It's the Dracula the Musical Award for Best Imitation of Real Art.
Yeah.
The 3 things that are tied are Celine's song, A Waltz for a Night, the cover of Jesse's book, which is called This Time, which looks like a real novel that you would have seen at Barnes & Noble in 2004. And the third is the answers that he gives during his impromptu press conference after his, and including his quote-unquote reluctance to share what he's going to say for his next novel,
5-minute monologue.
and then immediately reveals it in full to French journalists at the end of his book tour. And the idea is super flawed and kind of stupid, and yet the way that Ethan Hawke has an amazing ability to do in being interviewed imbues it with so much quote-unquote meaning that you're like, I might read that book.
It's a pre-order for me.
Yes.
No doubt.
Isn't it also
absolutely no doubt
that his like like if I remember correctly, he's like his daughter who is talking to him reminds him
that
of the girl he loses his virginity to. Or something.
That part is a little weird. In the proud tradition of I'm an old woman and you're a 13-year-old boy, there is a little bit of oddness to it. But this is, again, like a through line for Jesse. You guys talked about, like, did Jesse invent YouTube and live streaming, like the 24-hour program idea? Then he has this pitch for the whole book takes place in the span of a pop song across time. You know, without getting into any of the particulars about where we find them in Before Midnight, when there's like a 7-minute scene where he's ripping off, here's what my next book is going to be about, and everybody has their own, and the other guy's just like, this idea doesn't make sense, and even the way you are describing it is clearly not accurate, and Jesse's like, here's why it's great, and I'm like, I side with Jesse. This is just his thing.
It's sophomore slump. That's what I'm saying.
Is Jesse a great artist? Or is he the future inventor of meta? Like a lot of his ideas are like kind of where we are with technology a lot of the time. They're much less having to do with creativity.
Invent Bitcoin? What if I could just pay somebody? I didn't like the second novel idea. I had it in Picking Nits that he would just volunteer to these strangers.
Yeah.
Like
workshopping it.
It was probably my biggest nitpick in the movie, because if you have an idea, the last thing you want to do is be like, what do you guys think? Because then somebody else could just write it and take it.
You
just
never
never do
that that one French journalist who was being kind of a hardo, who was like, there's no way they got back together. He's just like, I will write the pop song novel. Well, this lazy American.
Yeah. He was kind of the Woj on LeBron, circa 2012.
Before anyone could just like tweet about it, so that's helpful.
Does anyone have a CR thinks Luke Wilson could have been Harrison Ford hottest take award?
I do.
I don't have a take.
Okay, let's hear it, CR.
Jesse kind of fucks over his wife, and Celine fucks over her war photojournalist boyfriend, who's probably in a war zone when she decides to get back together with this guy.
I don't know. Last night I was rewatching this, and I asked Adam, "What do you think the lesson of the movie is?" And my husband said to me, we had a very like sensible, measured conversation. He's like, "It's probably like try to find your first love again." And I was like, "Yeah, is it like it's like okay to cheat on your spouse?"
I mean, I just to say, like, if you could make.
I'm married to my first love. So.
Before sunset, from the perspective of Jesse's wife, who's home with a 5-year-old boy, waiting for him to get back from this lark of a book tour for his like kind of bestseller novel, when she knows this second novel is not going to take off because it's a stupid idea. And she's like, okay, when you get back, you have to take the kid for like a week. And then it's like, yeah, hey, like when does he make the phone call to be like, crazy thing happened, missed the flight, but like I'll jump on one in a couple of days.
I think when your sex PER is under 3, all bets are off.
That should be part of the Prime Video's Amazon X-ray feature, is that you can see the sex PER for every character on screen at any given time.
Great.
Well, that would give a lot of depth. Yeah.
I was also thinking like in midnight, he wants to move to Chicago to be closer to the sun. So I don't know if they're living in Chicago at the time.
She thinks he wants that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
we're supposed to talk about the third movie.
I'm just saying there is a possibility that while Jesse's on his European tour, his wife's banging Kirk Heinrich.
Yeah. They're not in a good place. But they're in New York at that time. They're not in Chicago yet.
Is there a deleted scene where Jesse's wife is just angrily stalking around in the airport because he has his plane, he wasn't on the plane?
Or hysterical, like, where is he?
Possible. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a completely valid point. That is one of the things about the movie that, like, it makes you complicit and kind of rooting for them to commit adultery. But, like, you were very
I'm just saying,
swept up in...
I mean, yeah, both things are true, right? That you want to see them together, and also he's clearly destroying Henry's life and his psyche for the rest of his life.
But, like, all of that will be dealt with in the third film, right? In a way that is
Mallory, what's your hottest take?
All right, here's my hottest take. We haven't talked enough, obviously, about Chia the cat, but it's time. And my take, I honestly don't know this is very hot. This is a tepid take. Celine, who I love and is a very important character to me, terrible cat mom. Terrible cat mom. She is so boastful about the fact that she just deposits every morning this beautiful creature in the mean streets of Paris to fend for himself in the 100-degree weather. No. Terrible.
No, that's a hot take. But I mean, cats are animals.
Yeah.
Who would just kill rodents and different things. And bring a dead rat back into your living room and be like, look, Mom.
My cat sleeps in my arms in bed.
Your cat's like 15.
He's doing great. He's thriving. Watch it. Careful.
That cat's going to live forever.
Careful.
Sean, what do
there
you
is
have?
a line.
You can make fun of Mark Andrews.
We've never hit it
Don't
yet,
talk about my cat.
There is a line.
Phil gets an HR.
I don't know if I can follow that one up. I texted this and I think I believe it. I think the car ride scene is, I don't know if it's the best scene of the 2000s, but it's the scene that makes me feel the most kind of electrified when I'm watching it. And it's on a list with 2 other scenes that I can think of right off the top of my head, which is one, the truck flipping over in The Dark Knight, where I was like, oh my God, like this is so exciting and crazy when that happened for the first time. And then the other one is Yo Homie, Is That My Briefcase from Collateral, when Tom Cruise shoots those 2 guys in the street. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, holy cat. And I was so like, just pumped up and excited. And this movie is, that scene does the same thing in a different way, obviously, but where you just can feel everything inside your body when it's happening. You're thinking really hard and you're feeling really deeply at the same time.
So you're saying that should get the "okay, motherfucker" award for when the movie goes up?
Jumps
a
up
notch?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Casting what ifs, there are none. Best that guy award, there are none.
Victor Dobchev, is that his name? The guy who's Jesse's like French handler.
I
He's
had him
been
for
in other
Dion
stuff.
Waiters.
Yeah.
Stealth. That guy.
I'm just stealthing it up.
I had him in Waiters as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was my Waiters. 7:30 at the very latest.
Dion Waiters Award, the press tour questionnaire, the limo driver who looks like Larry Zabisco. What do you got?
My Dion Waiters is the guy Chris just talked about.
Yeah,
the
I
bookstore
think it's the
manager who's
bookstore
like, this is
manager,
going
too.
to be
Bookstore
the
manager.
Philippe doesn't really do anything.
No.
He
just
still have some
kinda
notes for him.
nods.
Yeah.
Probably could have been drawn out a little more.
Yeah.
Post-script editing.
It's unclear if he understands anything Jesse says.
Well, it's like, does Philippe
That's an unanswerable question.
get paid either way, or is his job to get Jesse to the airport? Like,
Right.
do you
Otherwise,
think,
he's assassinated at the
well,
end
do
of
you
the
think
day.
that they, right after the fade out, they're about to do the deed, and Philippe's like, "Mr. Jesse, come on!"
You're going to be late.
Yes.
Recasting couch director city. I mean, we can run this back in Boston. Jesse's book tour in Boston.
I'll just say that the idea of Jesse and Celine being in New York at the same time, is very intoxicating. And like that idea of like, what if like he's on? I mean, even if you want to get crazy, on his way to his wedding, and he sees her, and they have like a hour-long conversation.
That's like a prequel, postquel.
I think even though it's like very appropriate that this takes place in her home city, it makes sense that would be where they discovered each other again. I really do like the idea of it being in New York because it lends then even more heft to the which continent should we build our lives in question that will loom large later.
Yeah.
If we had actually seen them for however briefly in the States together, we would have had that measuring stick.
And we still have not seen them in the States together.
Right.
You didn't give Celine the Edie Falco and Copland Award as well for the character that became 3 times hotter as soon as they had a cigarette?
It's not even 3 times
she's
hotter.
always
She's already
hot.
like
Yeah.
non-smoking heavyweight champion of the world. You know,
Half-assed internet research. Originally, Linklater considered a larger budget with 4 locations, could not get the funding, so they scaled it back.
What would that have been like? I don't really even understand that.
It
4
just feels like it
locations.
completely betrays the whole point of
Yeah.
the first 2 movies to
Yep.
be like a bigger budget. I just didn't get it either. They filmed it in Paris, obviously. Shakespeare and Company is the bookstore. It's on the left bank.
Great bookstore.
Yeah, I've been.
Le
Same.
Pure Cafe. The Promenade Plenty Park.
can I just tell you one
My
thing
French is
about
bad.
Le Pure Cafe? It is 45 minutes walk from
Yeah.
Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a movie magic going on.
There's some other French stuff that I'm not going to try to say the names, including her apartment, which was filmed in Cour des Tours de Faubourg Saint-Honoré.
You guys have your social clip.
You said you weren't going to say it.
It was one of the hottest summers on record, 100-degree weather during the filming. And then the man and woman that Celine speaks to in the courtyard were her actual parents.
Yep.
You can see a review of Jesse's book
Yes.
next to the picture where she looks like a cross-eyed baby.
That
and
that
it
would
pans back.
that would have
and
been my
there's a review.
like this time capsule, best like 2003 thing about it. Still clipping out like things
Oh,
from a
yeah,
newspaper or
right.
magazine and taping them to your wall.
The CD is Tomato Collection by Nina Simone, which weirdly was recorded on June 16th, 1968.
Oh,
Apex Mountain Hawk.
can I just say one more internet research thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The guy who jogs past them when they're sitting in the park, there's a guy who
Yep.
runs past them. He's wearing a Horace Pinker t-shirt, which is a early 90s pop punk band from Arizona. Just very Linklater to do that, I think.
And very
Nice.
CR. to
Also, and
mention it.
they apparently
Love
were
it.
writing the final scene, the Celine's apartment scene, at 3 a.m. the night before. They were still working on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Apex Mountain. We already did Hawk and Delpy. I think this is it for Delpy.
Probably.
Yeah.
Gets Academy Award nominated. This movie is a
Yeah.
beloved classic.
Paris?
Nope.
No.
Paris in movies?
What is it?
Ratatouille.
Oh,
No.
God.
Amelie?
Not for me. Not an Amelie
I
guy.
don't know what
Midnight
the
in
answer
Paris?
is.
Breathless? Like,
Yeah.
An
I
American
think
in
any
Paris?
number of
A lot of movies set in
Godard
Paris.
films.
It's a long, pretty long
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sequels? No. Romantic sequels? Might be.
Maybe.
romantic sequels.
Yeah,
It's
like-
a short list.
Yeah.
Mamma Mia 2. What else is on that list?
Penitentiary 2.
I'll get back to you when they make a sequel to Past Lives.
Do you guys think it's
I hope they
Apex
don't.
Mountain for film endings?
Oh, holy shit.
It's a huge question.
Wow.
I have
Yeah, I don't know.
Casablanca,
Not ready to answer that.
It's an inverted Casablanca.
There Will Be Blood, Godfather,
Rocky 2.
Shawshank. Did you say Rocky 2?
Yeah. Yeah. The Suicide
Shawshank.
Squad.
I
yeah.
think for me, it's
Jeez.
probably Shawshank
Yeah.
still. Or The Shining.
Movies set in one day? There are a lot. Draft
Yeah, there are
Day?
a lot. Yeah, Draft Day.
Bueller.
This is a
Bueller.
good movie set in one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely on the list.
It's not even. It's like. Is it supposed to be real time? I forget. Is it supposed to be 78 minutes? Is that the.
About.
Yeah, he's saying it's
pretty
like an
much.
80 minutes
it's like, when
between.
do I have to get there
He's
for?
got to
Because
be
there
at
is some cutting where we don't actually watch them do every single move
Yeah.
out of the cafe into the cafe.
I don't know if this is Nina Simone's Apex Mountain,
It's not.
but you could make a case because this movie will live on for like 100 years
So
in a
will her
weird
music,
way.
yeah.
She was a world famous star
No,
at
I
the
get
time.
it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. What is her Apex Mountain in? Maybe it's her
feeling
po-
good,
her pos-
probably.
Her posthumous Apex
Posthumous?
Mountain?
Yeah.
Could be her posthumous Apex
Yeah,
Mountain.
I
Yeah,
think that's a good answer.
There's a great documentary about her. There's a very bad biopic about her starring Zoe Saldana.
Paris bookstores. Paris boat rides. And love. Those are my last three lists.
I was gonna say, is this the
Goodness.
best? Is this the best movie couple? Is this Apex Mountain? for
Apex
movie
Mountain
couples?
for love.
Yeah. Well, for,
Apex
for,
Mountain for love.
couples.
Apex
I think
Mountain
so.
for movie couples.
I think so, yes.
Wow.
It's like
You live their lives with them.
Alvy and Annie.
That's-
Like I think. Yo, come on.
No,
Yeah, what other Woodman characters you got on the list?
I think if you apply it to the whole
What are you
trilogy,
doing? The two of you were full of shit. You know you were.
Where would you put
You're
Manhattan?
like, oh, CR, you're really off the reservation there.
I guess this is the last Rewatchables. I was trying to think like Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan.
These two are way better to me.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of famous couples in a movie.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of.
Oh, I know it. It's De Niro and Fonda. Jackie Brown. So
Yeah.
number 2.
There's a lot of movies from the 40s that are obviously in the
Cary
conversation.
Grant, Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah,
I get.
yeah.
I know. I'm
There's
just
Love
from my
Story
lifetime.
was referenced
I would
in,
probably say
in their
this.
first
Yeah.
film, you know.
and Annie Hall.
Ali Larter and
You're
James
on the record.
Vanderbeek.
And
Twice
Fair to
now.
Remember, that's one that jumps to mind. You know, Casablanca is a huge one.
Cruiser Hanks. Can you weigh in on Cruiser Hanks?
so I don't think there's I enjoyed your discussion. I don't think there's a place for either of them in this film unless we got that
That's not the point of Cruiser
alternate
Hanks.
4-city version. You need other there aren't other characters in the movie.
What if they
though.
just recast Jesse
No.
with Cruz, but
Cruiser
didn't
Hanks in the
acknowledge
Jesse
it?
part.
It's,
That's
it's not something that we can consider.
doesn't matter. Cruiser Hanks in the Jesse part. Pick.
Yo, homie, is that my Celine?
I would go with Cruz.
All right, so Cruz still
Cruz
wins.
describing
Cruz
the
wins
second
twice,
novel
Craig.
idea.
Yeah.
Cruz-
It all takes place
Does
over
Cruz
a
get
Phantom
2
of
wins?
the song.
You go buy, you go buy, you go buy.
I would dissolve into molecules.
I've had sex 10 times.
Scorsese or Spielberg? What do you have, Mal?
It's got to be Spielberg. I don't think you can consider Scorsese for the trilogy until Before Midnight.
I considered it.
Scorsese.
Karen! Scorsese for Before Midnight is very interesting, though.
That was the only second novel idea I had.
What role would Philip Seymour Hoffman have played? I'm really, this
Philippe.
category is really growing on me.
Gotta be Philippe.
Yeah.
Philippe
no
the
question.
limo driver. Yeah.
How's the cheating, Jesse? How's the cheating?
So I have a little special mailbag interlude from Courtney C,
Yeah.
who writes, "The Rewatchables mailbag episode was fantastic. Thank you, Courtney. I was thinking about that email that suggested a female counterpart category to the Cruz versus Hanks category.
Yeah.
How about this? Pick a Jennifer. Would the lead female role be better with Jennifer Aniston, Lawrence, Lopez, Connolly, Garner, or Coolidge?
Oh, Connolly, Jennifer Connolly.
Jennifer
my wife.
Roulette."
Oh my
I
God.
didn't hear Love Hewitt in there.
Then she writes, "P.S. I love the podcast. Whenever you get together with CR, it always feels like I'm hanging out with the guys I grew up with. Keep up the great work."
Wow. Thanks, Courtney.
Just thanks for
Wow.
oh,
thanks for making us feel
She
great.
must have had some cool friends.
So Jennifer Love Hewitt could be in there too. Could Jenna Ortega be squeezed in?
Oh,
What's
wow.
the Jenna
Oh,
versus
Jenna
Jennifer?
Ortega.
Jenna Ortega.
No, Jenna's
She
don't
hasn't
count.
earned it. Not yet. She's not
Okay.
there.
But Jennifer Love Hewitt, I think, could be in
Yeah.
there.
What
Yeah.
about Jennifer Jason Leigh?
Jennifer Jason Leigh
Yeah.
could be in there.
What about screen icon Jennifer Jones? Think of all the great Jennifers. What about Jennifer Flowers?
Yeah.
Ciara's favorite, you know?
So all Jennifers are open? Do you like this category?
All Jennifer.
Any Jennifer.
All Jennifers are open sounds like the porn title for this movie.
I like this one. So who would be the Jennifer for this
I
movie?
can't conceive of this character
just-
not being French. So
Exactly.
until you give me an alternative French actress.
How about Jennifer Connelly with a French accent?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, who says no? Honestly, yeah.
The Dan Campbell scale for holy shit, are they really going for this right now? The waltz.
Yeah.
Oh, she's going to play it? Oh!
Yeah.
All right, Mallory, it's time. Your flex category.
Okay, I'm gonna do. Did this movie have a porn parody?
Oh,
And are you surprised?
No, I didn't know where you were
we
going.
were workshopping these a little earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the answer to the question. I assume it's no. I didn't want to Google that on my work computer. But I think we should discuss like if it could have been. You just started doing this a few moments ago, or very organically, Chris. I would like to nominate as the title Before Cum Set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. CR. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this.
I was like, we forgot to say before cum rise.
Yeah. And this is
And then
Before
she-
Cum Set. The days
Sean-
and days and days
but
of
isn't
fucking.
It's before cum shot. That's
Yeah,
the,
but you're being a little bit direct, aren't
Before
you?
Come Rise and Before Come Set is pretty good.
What is cum set? What does
It's
that
like
mean?
the crusty, befouled surfaces
No,
of the apartment after
that's
they
not a
close the blinds and
reflection
they
of this
fuck
mo-
for 10 days
but-
and sweet little Che has to like just
No,
wade
because-
through secretions to get to his food bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how,
I'm just gonna look it up.
It's just not.
Thanks,
work
Craig.
phone?
Craig's gonna take the Safari cachet hit. I like when we do movies with pets, Mal always remembers the pet's name.
Che, yeah, sure. I mean,
What does it mean?
well, in Argentinian it means hope, I believe. Is that what she said?
Hmm.
Yeah, because Jesse's like, you're a commie.
Yeah. bit of a hard line.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of right wing, Jesse. Or is he just?
Jesse?
He's very undermining of a lot of her
I think
left leaning ideas.
9/11 had a big impact on him.
Yeah. You know? He
It
was just like-
radicalized him.
I don't know.
Okay.
Jesse dedicated this time to Donald Rumsfeld.
Did Jesse storm the Capitol on January
Yeah,
6th?
huge Wolfowitz guy,
Yeah.
Jesse. Yeah, he loves
Picking
the
nits.
Department of Defense.
Have to protect the green zone.
We did all my picking nits.
Yeah.
Actually, and
Very
then the
few.
47-minute walk. There's one where the extra in the red shirt is about to walk by them and then doesn't walk by them when they flip camera angles for like 10 seconds. That's just like a fuck up.
Do better.
We hit everything else. You don't have any other nitpicks, right?
Mine was the 45-minute
Yeah.
walk is actually it's like 8 minutes in the movie. It's actually 45 minutes.
Sequel, prequel, prestige TV, all black cast, or untouchable. This became a trilogy.
Mhm.
Is this movie better with Wayne Jenkins, Danny Trejo, Doris Burke, Sam Jackson, Nell, Byron Mayo, Barney Cousins, Tony Romo, Harling Mays, Chris Collinsworth, Daniel Plainview, Longlegs, or Wilford Brimley in The Firm? CR?
I was thinking about how funny it would be as Jesse sees Celine. It's the culmination of this 9-year wait. And then Wayne Jenkins walks up to him and he goes, "God damn, Jesse! Hey man, that's some great fucking autofiction, dog! I didn't know I was here with super novelists and a motherfucking bestseller spot. You better get back to your wife and kid, or your royalties are gonna come alimony for a long fucking time, big dog."
I was hoping you'd do win.
Incredible. You think Wayne spends a lot of time in Paris? Yeah. Yeah. Really cultured guy. Loves to travel. You're not doing Romo? Jim, he's gonna miss that plane.
Yeah,
He's gonna miss
Take
that
it
plane,
down.
Jim.
It's a 10-10 flight, Jim.
Philippe's gonna lose that commission, Jim.
after 9/11, it takes a ton of time to get through security, Jim.
I actually was thinking Collinsworth would be pretty
Yeah.
good for this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Mike. She just nailed the waltz, Mike. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't. She didn't even remember the lyrics that she was nailing it, Mike. Just want to ask her who gets it.
Delpy.
I think so.
I like that.
Here's
I think-
I'm with you.
here's the argument. It's Linklater for Sunrise, Delpy for Sunset, Hawk for Midnight. and they each get one.
If the world were just.
Hawk's performance in Midnight is unrivaled.
Probably unanswerable questions. When did he actually get on the plane? How many days passed?
So, do you
kinda
think
learn that in
he
the next
calls her and is like, "I'm not coming back because I'm going to have 10 days of sex with Celine"?
No, I think he waits
do you
to
think
share
I
the
think,
lie.
I think we're in the lying stage of
He
Waits
this.
to
goes
share the
back
lie.
a day too later.
No,
and-
he's there for days and days and days
meeting
fucking.
I'm meeting with the book company here about the
Yeah,
second
they extended
book.
the tour.
Fucking-
It's some lie. Then he
yeah.
goes home and he's like, I
tough
have
beat,
had an
man.
incredible amount of sex with the love of my life. We're done.
Hey, they're
I'm
running a
sorry.
fucking nursery.
We're done.
We're done. That's
he
a wrap.
doesn't say that to her.
What do you think?
I think they probably have a sort of illicit affair over time, and he doesn't go back right away and break it off immediately. And they try to figure. He tries.
Oh,
to,
I disagree. I think
You think it's
he
broken
stays 3
immediately?
extra days and then
He's like, "Send
tells
my
his
shit."
wife when he gets home. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm packing.
I
Guess
don't
what?
know.
Hank's going to camp in France.
Yeah.
They get into all that.
I think maybe just my affection for Hank. You know, I want to believe.
Hank's collateral damage in the love affair of a lifetime.
Yeah. Hank will be fine. Hank's
Hank's
got a
fine.
cool new stepmom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hank
Exactly. That's
got
exactly
That's
right.
definitely what Before Midnight is telling us.
Hank got pardoned from January 6th. He's fine. He's doing good.
Yeah.
Oh
He
man.
internalized all of his father's ideas.
Any other unanswerable questions for you all?
I have a couple.
A couple as well.
All right,
Yeah.
let's hear it.
You think Hawk wrote in all the stuff about Jesse being a stick man, like in terms of like his lasting sexual impact on Celine's life?
Oh,
Like,
that he added that?
he's like, why don't you say this? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Those were his contributions to the script. Yeah.
And I mean, what do you think Philippe's thinking this whole time?
This is one of my huge ones.
I think he's just stoned.
Do you think he understands English at all?
I've wondered that many
Because
times.
there is actually, it's sort of like a little disturbing when like this woman is in the back of his car begging
Yeah,
him
to get
let
out.
her out. She's speaking French, obviously, but like, yeah, how long does he wait? Like you said, before he goes and pursues Jesse and tries to figure out if he's going to be able to fulfill his mission? A lot of Philippe questions here.
I will say, in the grand scheme of things, like the fuck you, let me out of the car is
Yeah.
like one of the hardest things to navigate when you're driving, whether you're being driven or driving. If
Right.
somebody's just like, I'm
Yeah.
getting out, and you're
Yeah.
like, we're on fucking La
Yeah.
Brea, where are you
Yeah,
going?
but he didn't say that. He was just like, the man said no. I'm going to keep going.
They're only stopping if you're like, I'm going to throw up. Then they'll fucking stop.
Then Philippe stops.
Yeah, Philippe
Oh,
stops
man.
for that one.
How do you guys think the song about Che the cat went? We know that that's one of the 3 English songs. One is about an XX, many
I
X's
had a
ago. One's
question.
about
I
the
had an
cat.
unanswerable for that, whether she was singing the waltz regardless of which one he picked.
Mm.
Because the
would've loved to hear
choices
the one
she
about the cat.
gave were like pretty lame choices.
I think that that's on purpose. I think
Yeah.
that she gave him those choices so that he would pick the waltz.
That's what I'm saying.
And she offers it up last.
Because
in
who
a
would have
kind
been
of
like, oh, let me hear the song about your cat. That sounds fucking awesome.
and we certainly wouldn't want to
would
hear
have-
the song about the ex.
No, of
Right.
course not.
So
But the song about the cat would have been great.
The only thing for the X, she's like the XX would be like, is that about me? Maybe I'll pick that one.
possibly,
Yeah,
possibly.
could've
But
been.
we know she's had many men.
Many men,
Eh.
many.
Pieces of herself were handed out all over Paris and New York.
Nope, she takes her health very seriously.
Hmm.
Remember? That was part of her lie about. I mean, that part was probably true, but when she's lying about remembering having sex,
yeah.
she's like, I take my health very seriously. Unanswerable question. Jesse, you think he's a book talk star today? You think he'd just be crushing it on book talk, writing romance novels?
I mean, he's a 60-year-old man, so
And
Be super creepy.
probably not. I would
I
guess.
think I think Jesse would be huge on book talk today, and I wish he had gotten to live in this time.
I have probably an answerable question. What's book talk?
book talk. Oh boy.
It's answerable, I assure you.
Book talk is a subset of TikTok that is about books.
Well, I
And,
figured I could
yeah,
tell.
like,
I'm
it's
not
big.
on TikTok.
Big for romantasy in particular, and as you know, Jesse writes romance novels and likes to incorporate some fantasy elements into his stories. So
You know why I'm not on TikTok? Because I'm going to be like Will Smith and I Am Legend. I'll be the only one left after the Chinese take everything from TikTok.
Yeah.
It'll just be me. They'll not have my info.
But it was out of bounds for me to like Annie Hall, though.
oh man.
The floor is yours for the Woodman.
Do you guys think that
Unanswerables?
Jesse insisted on Paris being the last stop on the book tour? We all agree that it's a picking nit that he would
Great
have a
question.
European tour
I like
to begin
that.
with, but was he like, Paris has to be last? Just in
Do you think
case?
Jesse's in
and
any
some
position
press.
to make such
I need
demands?
some press with the press.
He somehow got a 10-city European tour, so maybe.
Wouldn't you argue that the opposite would be the way to go, though? that he should start in Paris so that she could join him if they
She's
hit it
definitely
off.
wounded when he's like, "Yeah, I was here last night."
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
like,
like,
what
oh,
the
I
fuck?
just
So maybe
crashed
he
and I
wasn't
love the books.
fully strategizing for this because he'd already had his heart broken so badly. And
Well-
the book was published and was reviewed, and she never tracked him down.
So, okay, let's build on this, and it gets to the questions you were asking earlier, another unanswerable. If he had not had a stop in Paris, because she says, I saw the event. This is my favorite bookstore. I come here, I saw your face, I saw the event. Easy enough to go. But she also says, I read about your book.
Yes.
Seemed vague. This is strangely familiar. She read the book, she read it twice.
The French covering this time breathlessly.
Just
Yeah.
enraptured. If he had not come to Paris, would she then have gone to find him? Because
I
she
say
knows
no.
for sure who he is, where he is. She's
I say
been
no.
reading about him, reading about the book.
I think no, too. I think she's too scooped out at this point. She's pretty beaten down.
Yeah,
in this
she's,
movie.
She's in Neil McCauley range. Why are you so interested in what I do, lady?
You've really got Neil on the brain, I feel like.
I've been
Yeah,
studying
we're
it lately.
The scouts are out.
Scouting department's
It's Senior Bowl time.
been activated. 40, it's coming up.
Boy, you see Sizemore running the 40? Like what I'm seeing from him.
I have some real questions about whether she would ever know the book came out in 2004.
She's got a little clipping.
That means she's reading the newspaper from cover to cover. Does she seem like? And I read
People
the newspaper.
did do that in 2004.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
I'm just there's a world where she
book
just never knows the book
prominently
came
I'll
features
out.
ask you,
French
'cause you'll
woman.
answer. You had a crush on a girl in high school.
Okay.
You hadn't thought about her in 10 years. We had Facebook in 2008. Did you ever just pop that name into the search bar?
Sure.
Of course.
But they didn't have Facebook
This is
in
the
04.
equivalent of that. But this is the equivalent of that.
But it hinges on that she had to see that this book was coming out with this guy Jesse Wallace.
But was
She
she?
had to know that's the Jesse Wallace. So why didn't she look him up?
Is it possible that she hasn't fully revealed how closely she's been tracking him? Because
she's stealth, like been monitoring it.
But
Yeah.
maybe some time had passed and she hadn't thought about him as much, but she got lonely or turned 30 and was like, oh my God, am I not
once
actually
Google
where I
got
want to
better,
be?
she Googled him, found out he was married, and decided to. Maybe she knew he was married the whole time.
But what did she Google? Jesse, Texas?
She could have just written his publisher and been like,
She
I
didn't know
was just
anything
looking
about
for
him.
Jesse. Incidentally, I'm the woman in this book.
This
You
is
know?
the thing. Like they didn't exchange phone numbers. They don't actually know that much.
The last
about each
name is
other.
important. We don't know if they exchanged last names. That would be crucial.
I don't think they did.
You say no. Okay.
I think that's crazy that they wouldn't have exchanged last names when they're 20 hours together. I have another question because we couldn't answer this in the first one because we didn't know if they had sex or not, but they did.
Yeah,
Twice. Way to go, Jesse.
Jesse put all his stuff in a locker.
Mm-hmm.
Did
Yeah.
they have condoms? It's
Yes.
1994.
Yeah, he says
They
he
talk about it
remembers
in
the
this. Yeah, he
brand.
says he remembers the brand of the condom. Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Has him in his wallet, has him in his pocket,
Yep.
stop to pick him up. As soon as they
It's a
leave the
tough- the
bar, he's like,
condoms
you
in the
already
wallet
gave me
era
a
was
free
tough.
bottle of wine. Give me some condoms. He got him.
Condoms in the wallet.
Is
Condoms
that
in
era
the wallet
over?
was-
What do you mean?
It's a dark era.
You don't know about this? What's age the best?
Lambskin.
Just in case you had an exciting night with a
Yeah.
big opportunity,
I
you
get
always
that.
kept one in the wallet, but that was not a good idea.
I'm saying the condoms in the era for when you're single, and that's part of
Yes.
your. That,
The question
it
is
just
really
wasn't
like,
a great era.
what condom was Jesse
But
carrying?
they told us not to do that.
Why?
Yeah.
Because
they
it
would
would
dry
erode
out.
the
Yeah.
usability.
It would also
Also,
dry out.
if the
It's-
guy who had the condom that was like in there so long that it
It's
would
like,
make
how
a
old is
ring
it?
on the wallet, it'd be
Terrible.
like,
Yes.
Very deeply sad.
Yeah.
Deeply sad.
You had the bad motherfucker, but for unused condoms wallet.
What kind of was Jesse carrying like a magnum so that people were impressed? Was he carrying like a ribbed for her pleasure?
Yeah.
What kind of condom do you think Jesse was carrying?
Good question.
A cheap one.
he
think
runs
Jesse
out
had a
of
lot of
money at
money.
like 7 p.m. that
Yeah,
night.
he probably got a condom from like one of those things that drops him out of the bar in the bathroom.
Yeah.
The thing he put in like 10 cents. And you
So
turn
for
it.
what piece of memorabilia
Yes,
would you want
that's
Jesse's
what
you're
used condom from the first film?
I'd want Jesse's signed book of this time.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think is the easy, obvious answer. Which raises the question: was this time a good title?
Yeah.
Can I ask a secondary
Well-
question? What would you have done if the book had been called Before Sunrise?
I don't think I would have liked it, actually.
Hmm.
That's 1 degree
It's too
too, like,
It's too
through the
cute.
looking
It
glass
shows
and into
restraint
the-
to
yeah.
not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this time is a terrible title.
Yeah. Before
It's like-
Sunrise.
Right, but Before Sunrise is a beautiful title, and so
Yeah.
it feels appropriate that
I
Jesse
actually
picked.
think it should have been called Before Sunrise, even though it's corny. It makes more sense to me than This Time. What does This Time even mean?
It sounds like the name of a
Really?
Kenny Loggins song.
Yeah. He should have done
this
he should have done Heart to Heart.
Yeah.
But then he writes that time.
That's right.
So
That's right.
He
does.
actually, What a Fool Believes, if we're going Yacht Rock.
Oh, that would be
better,
good. That would have been
better
good.
title. Coach Finstock Award, Best Life Lesson. Memories are a wonderful thing if you don't have to deal with the past.
That was what I
Yeah.
wrote
Great
down.
quote from her.
really good.
I have sometimes you got to miss that plane.
Yeah, that's mine as well.
Best double feature choice has to be Before Sunrise, unless you would say Before Midnight.
No, I would pick Before Sunrise to
Okay,
pair with
good.
this. Yeah.
Who won the movie?
The only thing I pair Before
I have
Midnight
Delpy.
with is
I
my
feel like
sadness.
the first one is kind of Hawks and this one's kind of hers. Maybe that's too simple way of looking at it. There's something about
I feel the opposite.
I feel
It's
like I'm
interesting.
watching him through her eyes in this film somewhat, but you feel the opposite.
I feel the opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
But not by much. Like I said on the last one we did, I felt like it's really close, but the last one is more up. And this one, even though it has this amazing romantic ending, there's way more pain in this movie.
Mhm.
I think Delpy wins.
That's why you're my guy.
If I had to pick, I would
Because
pick her,
the
but
movie
I
hinges
can't
on
pick.
if the waltz isn't really good, the movie kind of
That's true.
gets a little scraggly
But it
at the
hinges
end.
just as much on like his face as he's listening to it. It's tough. You almost can't pick.
Yeah.
It has to be both of them.
It's almost like it's a made up category on a podcast.
Well, buckle up. Producer Craig, who had not seen any of these movies, and then watched both of them.
On a plane. Does that bother you that I saw these on a plane?
No, I think that's actually perfect.
Appropriate.
Yeah, you were traveling.
You
give
didn't
us,
miss
give
that
us your
plane.
thoughts on one and then two.
Okay. Truly mesmerized by the first one. Beautiful movie. Sean mentioned in the first pod about the dialogue kind of being that early 20s dorm room philosophizing.
Oh, yeah.
I completely identified with that. I fell in love with Celine. Who didn't? She's very funny. I think the only thing, I love that entire movie. I love that my favorite quality about the movie is that, about both movies really, is that they don't fully get along always. They are a perfect fit, but that's not a literal term. And I think a lot of times when they try to build relationships in movies, the perfect fit are like, you all like the same things and you have the same views about everything.
Right.
And they don't have that, and it's messy sometimes, but you still know that they should be together, but that doesn't always mean you agree. And so I thought that was really smart writing. I really enjoyed the ending. I was like you, Bill, like a hopeful. I thought they were going to get back together, or at least I wanted to believe that. And you don't want to think about it too much, the possibility that they wouldn't get back together. I also was a little bit annoyed that she liked Ethan Hawke so much at the beginning of the movie, because I think he's not the best hang. He's a little bit smarmy and smug, and I was almost jealous of Jesse. I was just like, this fucking guy. I'm like, he's really getting Celine right now. But then I think it's part of it. They kind of soften each other, and their differences come together. The movie doesn't work if she's not French. Also, she has to have an accent. Honestly, she has to be French. I firmly believe that. If she was Jennifer Connelly, it wouldn't work. And then Before Sunset, I was terrified. Didn't want to watch it. Was upset that it even got made. Maybe I'm just burned out from sequels nowadays, where I'm just like, especially the delayed sequel, where it's not immediately planned.
Yeah.
Where, it's like when they put them together and they come out 2 years apart and it was like a part of a whole thing, it's fine. But I don't know. It's like Dumb and Dumber 2, 20 years later, you're like, God, this is going to suck. I knew obviously these movies were beloved, so whatever. But once again, I was beautifully surprised. I liked that their perspectives switched in many ways. And again, it was clunky and they took time to warm up to one another once again. Because at first you're like, I don't know. They're not really meshing once again. The only thing I think what's aged the worst in this movie.
Oh, boy.
No. I think both these movies are honestly perfect. But the only thing that aged the worst is I think that young people are aging slower now. Because how old are they in Before Sunset? 32?
23. Sunset, they're 33.
30,
Or
33.
32.
32, 33 range.
32, 33. I think that's too young now.
To have like a kid and stuff.
Yeah, I think the idea of like you're 32 and your life is over is no longer identifiable for people my age.
Yeah.
As a 30-year-old myself now. I'm just like, they seem like a weathered 32 to me. He's got 2 kids and a wife. She's had a whole life. It just feels like nowadays people are getting started so much later that in my head, they should be like 37 having this issue, not 32.
It's a really good point.
I think that's
But
accurate.
Yeah.
If it's later in their life and they haven't seen each other, it's almost like it breaks through some wall of like, yeah, but that was like 15 years ago.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
something about
That's why this
Within
movie
the
works so
decade.
well with
Yeah.
the years it was made.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Because you'd also, if it was made now, there'd be phones. She
yeah.
would have hunted him down in 5 seconds. There's all these reasons why this movie could never happen in the way it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it really feels like I can't believe it worked that this sequel came out and it before midnight worked, but it really does feel like you're getting like it's kind of suspenseful. It's like you can't believe that you get these 80 extra minutes with this couple that you have no idea what happened to. And it's the most captivated I've ever been watching two people talk. It's like you genuinely are like, I can't miss a word they're gonna say.
But you did not watch the
A
third
good
one.
review
No.
from Craig.
I don't I
Will
know where
you?
it's headed and I don't want to go there.
You don't know where it's
I'm
headed.
happy now.
You don't know where it's
I'm
headed.
happy where I am now with this
No,
with this
no, no,
franchise.
no. You have to watch it.
No.
What?
Craig,
At least can I live with this for 9 years like everybody else got to?
Craig,
No.
don't watch it.
I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But you run
It's
a
a
very
beautiful movie.
serious risk, which is you will be very close to the age of the characters in the movie when you watch the next movie,
Which I was.
which
Yeah,
is a little risky.
But isn't
But
it worse if I
Liz will
watch
be
it at
married to
30 now
Chalamet at
and
that
going,
point,
that's where
though.
I'm headed?
No, I
Yeah.
don't think so. I don't think so. I think if you find yourself associating
I
with
just
the
don't want it.
feelings in the third film,
Yeah.
you will have a full-blown midlife crisis.
Well,
Do you agree?
Great.
I actually can I answer that, or is it getting into too many spoilery territory?
You
Like
gotta
too
ask,
much of a
you gotta
spoiler.
ask BS.
I think there is a take.
Are you going to ruin
No.
pull my intestines through my rectum
No.
month?
You've nailed that every time, by the way, like the phrasing of that, which is very
Thank you.
impressive.
I kind of think you. I think there's something comforting about it, actually.
That is so defining about you.
Yeah, I know.
That
But
is
it's like
so-
you
I think
see
there's something comforting
other
about-
people also have
Exactly.
problems, even the
Yes.
dream
It's like
couple.
it is
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
totally normal.
I'm
to
not saying
go
it's
through
not,
these things.
but
So
to be confronted
I hold
by
on
it
to that.
is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
It's
I
a
think
very painful movie
Mentally,
to watch.
I am
very
still
important.
closer to the sunrise phase in my life than I am to sunset. And so I don't even want to think about midnight.
It's
Right.
You're thinking about wife
Beautiful
number
movie.
2,
Yeah.
or what do you mean?
How dare you?
The listening booth is the fact when I heard you guys say it was the first take that
You
blew
can
my
tell.
mind.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't.
It's my favorite.
I didn't know that this movie was 80 minutes when I saw it, and I just remember freaking out when it ended.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I've ever had that experience of like, what do you mean it's over?
Right.
Like, desperately wanting it to continue.
It's
Yeah.
good that if this movie were 2.5 hours, it would feel like overindulgent and sequelized. I actually
Well,
love
there would
that.
also be more opportunities to be like, maybe they shouldn't. You know what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
but
like if
weirdly,
it goes-
80 minutes is also kind of the perfect podcast interview length. When anyone I've done, I've always felt like around 70 minutes, it starts to get a little gamey.
So once again, Jesse, a pioneer.
yeah. Sean, thank you. Mal, a true pleasure.
Delightful. A joy.
True pleasure. Sorry we
privilege.
didn't do more cat in the streets of France talk.
You know, happiness is in the doing. That's what I learned
I was
watching
going to
this
say
movie
my
and being
take.
here with
Cat
you.
didn't really seem like it had personality.
That cat stays in her arms for like a 4-minute take
Doesn't
walking
move.
up the
Is that cat a-
staircase.
Is
Incredible.
that cat alive?
Riddled
What was
with
going on
fleas.
with that cat?
Everybody in that movie has fleas. Ethan Hawke is like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I
fleas in
got fleas at
Shakespeare,
the
like,
bookstore.
yeah.
Tough. I hope that didn't make it to
CR,
Yelp.
Great to see
pleasure
you.
as always.
yeah.
You're my Wayne girl.
We'll see you on Off the Pike, buddy.
Producer Craig, thank you. Thanks to Jack as
Solo
well.
Annie Hall rewatchables coming soon.
We'll see you next week. Not with Before Midnight, by the way.
Damn it.